We all love to travel, but the more we travel, the more opinionated we become. And we've started to form some pet peeves. Hi, my name is Shaun. I'm the UC Berkeley graduate that created and taught the university-sponsored course on credit card rewards. I'm here with my co-host, Sherwin.
Hi everyone, I'm Sherwin. I'm a Stanford student who's really into the credit card points miles travel hobby, here with you to share my thoughts that I've learned along the way. So today's episode is titled Travel Pet Peeves. Now, we're going to start off with a disclaimer. Shaun?
Yeah, so these are personal and very first world pet peeves. So you may not agree with all these. In fact, you most likely will not agree with plenty of these. These are our own personal pet peeves that, again, are we're coming from a very privileged perspective here. So don't go comment down how we are very insensitive and all that. These are just personal pet peeves that have to do with luxury travel.
Yes. So, Shaun, why don't you get us started?
Okay, here we go. So one pet peeve I have is hotels cutting corners in the name of the environment. Like, oh, no daily housekeeping, or just any other kind of restrictions. Like, oh, we don't change sheets. Now, I don't really care if they change sheets that much, but when they claim it's for the environment, let's be real, it's to help your wallet. You don't care what the environment has. You would do it if it's worse than the environment if it helped you save a penny. So that's one for me. What about for you, Shaun? What's your first one?
I'm gonna go along that line and say a lot of times hotels are cutting costs now, especially after COVID, because they had to close down certain things during the pandemic, understandably. For example, like club lounges. But then they realized, oh, we can get away with keeping these perks off the table or keeping the club lounges closed, and it actually helps us cut costs. So we're just gonna keep doing that and say it's due to COVID-19, even though it's 2024. The club lounge is still closed, right? So not a huge fan of those cost-cutting measures that oftentimes they still use, environment or COVID-19 as an excuse, but we all know it's about the bottom line.
Yep, totally agree. Anything that is related to COVID that hotels are using as an excuse, let's be real, it's now just money-saving strategy, so absolutely hate it. Okay, my next one is I really get annoyed when someone is upset for someone reclining on a plane. They have the recline function built into the seat. You are allowed to recline. If you don't like it, you can ask someone very nicely to not recline. If you demand someone not to recline, then you're being a jerk. If you're like 6'5" and you're just gonna have a bad time and you ask someone in front of you very nicely and respectfully, would it be possible for you not to recline? I understand if not, that's totally fine. But if you're a jerk about it, come on. At the same time, another pet peeve I have is when people act like they've never been on a plane before and then they recline the moment they get there. Come on. You all know at this point, you can't recline until after takeoff and you can't recline during meal service. It's like, come on. So those are my two pet peeves back to back.
Yeah, I agree with your take on reclining. I think a lot of people think reclining is inherently rude to the person behind you. Unfortunately, I think, yeah, it is uncomfortable for the person behind you, and it is uncomfortable to be reclined upon. But when you pay for an airplane seat that includes all aspects of that seat, including the recline function, I don't think it makes sense for you to just have to forego that thing that you paid for just because someone behind doesn't like it. Like, yes, you should ask nicely if you have an issue with it, but it's still the right of the person and who has that seat to recline when they are allowed to. Shaun, let's move on to another one of yours.
Sure. Okay, so another one I have is sharing hotel rooms. So I am someone that does not like sharing hotel rooms in pretty much any circumstance, except of course if I'm traveling with my player too. That's totally fine. But like any other scenario, I just don't share hotel rooms. I don't like it. So if I'm like traveling with friends and stuff, I'm not the type of like, oh, let's all just share one room and it'll be crowded and all that. And I'm like, no, I like my own room. I like to have my own private space that I can go to at night. I don't know. My social battery sometimes it gets a little drained, and having my own hotel room just kind of is a nice, peaceful sanctuary. Is that something you share an opinion with, Sherwin?
I think that's fair, but I'm less sensitive to this. I travel a lot with my family, and I enjoy traveling with them, and we often share a room. It's just how we do it. It's fine. It works for us. I enjoy it. Yeah, and sometimes certain hotels have like really small rooms or less square footage. That could be more of an issue, but it's not as big of a deal for me. Sometimes if I go on a trip with like a close friend, I'm fine sharing a room with them as long as I like know their habits and like we're respectful to each other and stuff. So yeah, that's my take. Shaun, I feel like you have a lot more pet peeves, so let's keep
Yeah,
going
I
with
wrote a
yours.
lot down on our outline, so let me keep going here. Okay, this is another just like individual one. So just to me, it's really annoying to me when airlines have a vegetarian option. So like if we're traveling on a long haul flight, okay, we're talking like 10 hours plus. Usually they serve 2 meals. It drives me nuts when I look at them, especially if I can see the menu online in advance, and I see they have a vegetarian option for one meal, but not the other. Because that means I then have to select and I'm vegetarian for those of you that don't know. And that means I have to select the special like vegetarian lacto ovo meal as like a specialty dietary request. I can't just order off the menu. And that drives me nuts because usually the specialty meals just kind of suck across the board. And also like for the good desserts and stuff, like they don't give them to you. So if I order the vegetarian meal on the plane, right, off the menu, and they have like ice cream and stuff, or like good, like bread with some normal butter, they don't give that with the vegetarian lacto ovo meal. Even though it fits within the dietary restriction of the vegetarian lacto ovo meal, for whatever reason, they don't give you the same, dessert and stuff. So that drives me nuts because if I could order, if you have a vegetarian meal for one meal, why not do it for the other meal too? Like for the other, for lunch and dinner or lunch and breakfast or whatever 2 meal pairings they have. So that's a personal, very annoying thing for me. Another, just again, we're just rattling off here. Another one across the board. I'm not that interested in U.S. travel that much anymore, especially having gone to these international destinations. Now, before you all go in the comments and roast me, let me provide a little bit of explanation. Number one, it's expensive. Traveling within the U.S. has gotten absurdly, stupidly, comically expensive across the board. And when you're paying these prices, look, I don't mind if something's expensive if you're getting a justifiable thing in return for that, such as an increase in quality. We just don't see that with US travel anymore. Compared to international travel, we're just seeing just poor service across the board. The service culture in the United States is just not good compared to what you'll see in other places, especially like Asia. You will just not see as good of service in the United States for more money. There are Hyatt Regencies in Asia that will cost you $150 a night that you will get significantly better service than a Ritz-Carlton costing $1,000 a night in the United States. So that is something to me that has been driving me nuts. And then also just the fact of in the United States, we have just an oversaturation of elite members where elite benefits and upgrades, just you won't see those that much in the US compared to Asia. You'll get some really, really good treatment in Asia and the Middle East with elite status.
Yeah, I feel like in the US, it's so much easier to get elite status at hotels and stuff with credit cards that, it's just hard to stand out among the crowd. So it's harder to expect like better or more individualized treatment at properties. I do agree with you on like US travel becoming really expensive. If you really think about the domestic airline prices are actually quite pricey for what it is, given like, I actually don't think flying in the US is a pretty good experience. But even besides that point, a lot of airports have few carriers or few airlines that are really dominant in there. So there's like a lack of competition. So certain routes are just astronomically expensive. And it's also hard to find outsized value using points and miles in domestic airline travel as well, because most airlines are moving toward a fixed revenue model where, it's easier to get availability because you don't have to find saver availability, but it's just going to cost you a lot more points to fly some pretty basic routes. And then I also agree with the hotel. Hotels are getting absurdly expensive in the U.S. for and again, we already talked about hotels are still cutting costs in terms of the quality of service they provide, but they're more expensive. So yeah, I think Shaun has a good point that it's just less interesting now.
Yeah. You want me to do another one or do you want to go?
I'll go. I hate resort and destination fees at hotel. I mean, okay, I feel like resort fees used to be like, oh, you can pay this fee to use the pool or whatever for like an actual resort. And then it became mandatory regardless of whether you use the resort. And then now hotels that aren't even resorts are like, hey, let's charge a fee too. So let's call it a destination fee. And it's like, usually $40 to $60 a night, and you're not really getting any tangible benefits from it. It's just a way for them to show up as cheaper on like the hotel search engines, but then like tack in a fee at the end that isn't taken into account when their prices are sorted and aggregated. Even worse is when resort fees are assessed on award stays. When I'm redeeming points or certificate, I really want that stay to be free, right? Like actually free, not just free in the rate, but like actually free. And not so at Marriott and IHG, which still charge resort fees on point stays. Very disappointing. Shaun, thoughts on these fees?
No, totally agree. I dislike resort fees or any of these type of BS fees across the board. The only like 1% nice thing about it, and this is just like, a very, very small thing, is that the fact that these fees exist do benefit some elites of some programs. And what I mean by this is particularly for Hyatt and for Caesars, like Caesars Entertainment, the casino company, the resort fees are arguably, for some people, a good thing. And what I mean by this is, for Caesars elites, you get waived resort fees, which allows us to book rooms for like $10 a night at certain properties. Hyatt globalists get waived resort fees. So you could book some properties that other people are paying a lot more for, but we're able to save some money on. Very niche use case, but it's nice for those people. Other than that, totally agree. Resort fees suck.
Yeah, it's like, am I really going to be using the Windows XP computer in your business center? Like, why are we still paying an extra fee for? Okay, anyway, let's move on.
Okay, so a pet peeve I have, and Sherwin disagrees with this a little bit, and we were discussing this before, is I hate whenever I have to wait in a line. It drives me nuts. Now, I hate waiting in any lines, okay, at all. But there's certain types of lines that make me extra irritated. And so, couple. One is hotel check-ins. It drives me nuts. Because where's the elite line? Like, if I'm staying at a hotel and I have top-tier elite status, and there's a line, and the hotel expects that there's going to be a line, they should probably have an elite line. Or at the very least, make your mobile check-in work. But they should have an elite line. That drives me nuts.
It's not that they probably should have one. They are required to have one under these loyalty programs. Yeah. Because the priority check-in is a benefit of the higher. Anyway, continue.
Especially at luxury properties, like at some of these bigger luxury properties, they'll have a line to check in. What are you doing? If you're a Ritz-Carlton or a St. Regis, you just can't have a line to check in. That's just not, I know that's not like in the official brand standards, but come on, they shouldn't have one. Another one, this is where we kind of disagree. If I'm flying business or first class, I get annoyed when there is not a priority line for security and or immigration. Now, I'm not saying that, like, I think the airline should pay for it. I think the airline should, if they're going to get their own dedicated line for this, they should be paying a pretty penny for it. But if you're flying first class or business class, and they're trying to market it as a luxury or increased comfort, convenience experience, if I have to go wait in a 30-minute security line or immigration line before or after, that takes away from the experience. That annoys me. Now, the final one, I'll let Sherwin give his thoughts in a second here. The final time it really does annoy me, and this annoys me the most, actually, is needless lines. There are a lot of places, now this isn't just relevant to travel, but across the board, there are lines that are just irrelevant, that don't need to be there. So what I mean by this is, if you are ordering food at a counter, and you are then going to subsequently wait for the food, there is no reason that I need to be waiting in a line. This could be done via a mobile order. There are places that have very simple ordering processes, which is just, they're serving just like one or two main food items, and that's what the place is known for. And you got to wait in like a 20-minute line to order. This could be done via a mobile app, and I could come back later. That would be totally fine. Yet for some reason, I have to stand in line for them to take my order. Drives me nuts. Okay, Sherwin, what are your thoughts?
Yes, my hypothesis for why some of these places make you wait in line to use like even like a kiosk that could have been a mobile order is to like artificially limit the flow of orders so they can keep up with stuff. So that's my guess on why some places are doing that. But I agree with you, it's annoying. They should be using new technology. In terms of the security and immigration lines, I kind of have a different view. Now, I do sympathize with the view that like if you're paying tens of thousands of dollars for like a premium experience, that should be from beginning to end, including the time at the airport. So I support things like having a separate check-in counter, for example, set up by the airline for elites or for people in business or first class. But I think when it comes to like security or immigration lines, if those pertain to like entering the country or something to do with the government, there doesn't necessarily need to be a separate line or first of business. In my view, if the line pertains to something, regarding, the government or immigration, like they should not necessarily distinguish between people who are flying different fare classes. Because at the end of the day, you are the same, people trying to enter a country. I just don't see why the fare should be connected to that part.
That's a totally fair view. I think my only counter would be if the airline is paying a significant enough price that not only it pays for the entire like addition of that line, but then also it helps gives more funding to like the standard line as well. So maybe they can have more staffing for the standard line. Then I don't have a problem with it. Like then it's because it's overall kind of benefiting the whole system. But I do understand that take. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I fully can acknowledge that is a valid take.
Okay, that's fair. Let's move on. So, Shaun, do you want to give another one of yours?
Yeah, I hate when hotels, and I think you hate this one too, when hotels lie about upgrades. This just drives me nuts. So like, oh, we gave you a better view. Oh, it's the same view, but it's a higher floor. Or we already upgraded you. Like, for example, if I'm checking into a Hyatt and I'm asking for a standard suite, and you told me you already upgraded me to a different room category, but it's still below the standard suite. Cool. But that's not what I'm supposed to be upgraded to. I'm supposed to be upgraded to the standard suite. And the most common one we'll see is, oh, that room isn't available. We are sold out. That's funny. I can book it right now on the app. So what happens if I book it? Are you going to tell me if I go pay $1,000 for this room, you're just going to not give it to me? Like maybe some cases that's true. Usually it isn't true though.
Yeah, I think hotels should be honest about it. Like, if we're elite members at the hotel chain, we're probably really familiar with the system and you shouldn't be duplicitous about it. If you're not able to provide an upgrade because it's your policy not to upgrade this sort of elite tier to this category room, just say that. Don't say we are sold out because we can figure out that that is actually incorrect. So, as long as you're honest about it, or even if they say like, oh, we would upgrade you, but there's another person with an even higher elite tier that's coming later tonight and we need to upgrade them with higher priority first, like that's fine. So
totally agree.
Yeah. On the vein of hotels, I have one of my biggest pet peeves is having to ask or beg to receive elite benefits to which you're entitled. It just feels really icky because then I feel guilty about sounding whiny, even though like if I've earned an elite tier at a hotel, like I should expect to receive the benefits associated with that elite tier without having to ask for it. It should be the prerogative of the front desk to explain those benefits and provide them rather than me having to like beg for upgrades, ask about how I can use the breakfast benefit, ask to get bottled water, etc., etc.
I totally agree. I'm going to take it a step further, and that a pet peeve of mine is when hotels don't auto upgrade elites. I understand this isn't a like requirement under the program, but let's be real. Usually hotels pre-block rooms in advance. So it's just annoying to me when it's like, I see the hotel's wide open. I have elite status that should entitle me to the upgrade. And they have not upgraded me by the night prior. Like the morning I'm going, I don't see an upgrade because it's like, now I have to worry about like, I'm like, are they going to upgrade me when I ask? Sometimes if it's like a special occasion, they'll put things like in the room already. I feel bad if they have to like move it over and stuff. It's just annoying because like when I check in, it's immediately I have to ask for this. And like, even if they do it, great. It's just like, if you're already going to do it, and if my elite status is high enough and I'm high enough priority or whatever, and the room's not available, it would just be nicer if they just pre-block it. And a lot of hotels do this, and I love it because then I go to the hotel. I don't worry about asking for the upgrade. I'm like, great, I've already been upgraded to what I want. Don't need to push. They're going to tell me to check in. It's a nice experience.
Yep, I think that makes sense. Okay, let's move on to another pet peeve of yours, Shaun.
Okay, so I have one that drives me nuts is award cancellation fees. So this is something we don't see in hotels at all, but we do see it across the board on airlines. And so, normally when booking like a cash ticket, there's a cancellation fee associated with it. With an award ticket on a lot of airlines, especially non-US airlines, they have a cancellation fee. And this makes it annoying because now if I want to, like, let's say there's some rare reward and I want to speculatively book it, I can't do it. So ones that are notable, like Turkish has a $70 fee, Aeroplan has a 150 Canadian dollar fee, ANA has a 3,000 mile fee, and Virgin has a $50 fee, which is, somewhat reasonable. But it's annoying because now it's like if I want to make changes, especially if these are points tickets, it's supposed to, usually they're supposed to confer some extra flexibility. It's just a little annoying to me because now it's like I have to be pretty solid in my plans to book something. I just don't want to go speculatively booking, especially with a program like Aeroplan, which 150 Canadian dollars, that's actually like pretty expensive to change a booking.
Yeah,
I understand
agree.
that there's reasons they have this. It's just annoying.
Yeah, that's why I like United and American Airlines because they don't charge cancellation or change fees for awards. But United's not that useful anymore because they charge an astronomical number of points for their partners and they keep devaluing or whatever. And so like a lot of the sweet spots are going to be these foreign programs, which do charge high fees. I kind of see the reason for it because, they need to prevent abuse, like scalpers booking every single award ticket as soon as it becomes available, then reselling it. Obviously, illegal / violates the terms of service, and they need a way to, remove the incentive to do that. So I can get why, but sometimes like Aeroplan, come on, $150 Canadian fee is super, super, super steep. So yeah, I really like booking hotel awards because pretty much all of them are always flexible, and you cancel, you get your points or certificates back. It's pretty easy. Okay, Shaun, why don't you move on to the next one?
Let's do it. Okay. So this is a hot take. Okay. And again, these are personal. These are not, I'm saying across the board. I am not interested in budget travel. Do I like to save money? Yes. However, I like this game to experience stupidly luxurious travel. I don't have an interest in hostels, especially multi-layover economy flights. My God. Whenever I see one of those deals, it's like, oh, there's 3 stops or 2 stops. Risky street food, those kind of things. I'm in this game to do, stupidly luxurious travel. This makes it very tough to plan trips with friends sometimes that are not in this game, because if you're trying to plan a trip to like Japan or something, and if you're not in this game, there's no way you're staying at the Park Hyatt Kyoto unless you're absurdly wealthy. But that's the type of places I like to stay using this game. Again, I'll be very clear. I am very privileged to be able to say that, have enough points to do that, and be able to experience things like that. I'm just saying, for me, my personal taste, I'm not interested in the budget travel side of things. I don't like going to countries, especially countries that are not as developed, and doing budget travel, because then I feel like you start to take on more risk. I'm not worried about if I'm in a St. Regis or a Park Hyatt or something. I'm just not worried about things as much. I know I kind of have this hotel as my home base as, hey, if I get stuck somewhere, let's call the hotel concierge up. Maybe they can help me with something. I'm not worried about, oh my God, I got to take all my valuables and lock them in the hotel safe, because what happens if someone takes it? I understand there's still risk, for sure, but I'm just not as worried about it. I'm not worried about eating food that, like, hey, could I get food poisoning here? This country is known for it. If I'm eating at the Park Hyatt, probably not going to happen. So that is my take on that.
Okay, that's interesting. I feel like I also share similar thoughts about like, when you're into points and miles, it makes it harder to plan trips with friends that don't necessarily have a bunch of credit cards and points like you, because you have different priorities. That being said, I feel like my style of traveling is a little more balanced than Shaun's. For example, on one trip, on the same trip in one destination, I decided to just stay in like Holiday Inns using IHG points, cheaper, lower end, not luxurious at all, because I knew that my goal for traveling to that destination was to explore the city, go out every day. I'm actually not spending that much time in the hotel. So I'm okay with a more budget, a more affordable option, because my goal is not to stay at the hotel at that location. My goal is to explore the city, take public transportation, check out the, landmarks in that area. On the same trip, I also did, in another destination, I also booked nicer accommodations using my points. So I think it's not like you have to do this. I don't feel like I have to stay at the most expensive or the nicest things place by place. It just depends on like what your priorities are for each trip and how can you leverage points and miles in certain areas to help you maximize what you want to get out of that trip. So that's kind of my take on it.
That's totally fair. That's totally a valid take. I think also I want to emphasize like my avoidance of budget. Like I won't always do like Park Hyatts and stuff. Like if there's a better option, like points wise and stuff, I don't always have to do like the tippy top. My main thing I'm not interested is like especially at the ultra budget level. So if we're talking like anything hostel related, anything at like super budget hotel related, that's my and I do vary as well in like the trips that I book.
Okay, you want to move on to another one?
Yeah. Okay, this is a very specific one. Okay, this is extraordinarily specific. I don't know if you've noticed this, Sherwin, but far too many hotels, I will see that they have this really cool looking buffet spread, and they'll have all these nice fruits, and sometimes they're exotic fruits, sometimes they're just very common fruits, tons of them, but the fruit quality is trash. Like I'm talking cantaloupes that are hard, mangoes that aren't sweet, things like that, watermelon that's like just way too like crunchy and just has like no juice in it. And this drives me nuts because totally understand if the fruit is not in season and they can't get good fruit. That's fine. Don't put it out. They don't do that for other food. If they have like poor quality food, they're not putting it out. I understand not doing that. It just annoys me when they like try to make it look like they have this really cool buffet and then all the food quality, or particularly in the fruit, is just not good. On a similar note, it drives me even more insane when, especially at tropical like resorts, they will have these really nice fruit displays, and then they put no thought into insect control. Like there's those kind of spinning, if you've seen them, little tabletop gadgets that can like remove flies. They don't have those. They don't have covers for the fruit. They just kind of leave it out in the open, and then you go up and there's like fruit flies all over the fruit. I'm like, I'm not going to eat that. Why even have it there in the first place? So when a hotel has good fruit and they have insect control, I really do appreciate it because I'm like, wow, like this is like good. They did it right. They put some thought into this.
Okay, that is very specific, and I don't have much to add to that. I think our listeners will enjoy hearing your take about bad quality fruit. So let's move on to the next thing. Shaun, go ahead.
Okay, I'll do another one. Sure. So this is also like, I hate hotel extra guest fees. So like when I'm booking a room and there's a fee to add an extra guest, that's just annoying to me because now you're incentivizing me to lie. Now in international properties, you can't do that. You cannot lie. You have to actually put the guest count because it's very easy for them to find out. In the US though, everyone does this. Everyone just, they say they have 2 guests and they bring in 4, they bring in 3, whatever. And I don't like hotels incentivizing me to lie. I don't want to do that. I'd like to be honest of the number of guests I have. And I'm paying for the same room. I'm paying for the same experience, the same capacity. Like as long as it fits within fire regulations, I should be able to bring however many people I wish. Now, the exception, of course, is at properties with like all-inclusive buffets. Not all-inclusive, but just all-inclusive properties in general. Totally understand in that case because there's a direct food cost and such like that. That I understand. Normal hotels and resorts, come on, extra guest fees, stupid.
I agree. And my bigger issue actually is sometimes hotels will restrict their base rooms to a maximum of 2 people. If you try to add a third guest on the website, the base rooms disappear and you have to book like more deluxe room or a suite. And that's a major issue for 2 reasons. Like A, you have to pay a lot more for the deluxe room or the suite. But also B, if I'm trying to redeem points for a stay for like my parents and myself, like 3 people, my family, that like eliminates a lot of the options because usually points can only be used for base rooms. And then if you're not going to allow more than 2 people in the base room, I can't use points at all at this property. And that really cuts down. It was really, really challenging to find places where I could use hotel points in Europe when I traveled with my family because we had 3 people in it. And I understand if you have more than 3 people, it's even greater of a challenge. But the word availability and the 2/3 person thing on the base reel really drives me insane.
Totally agree. I think that's a fully valid take. Another one I have is, and this is a general one. This leads into a general pet peeve, but hotel minibars. I really dislike hotel minibars, and for a few reasons. Because the price, first of all, of these minibars, they're supposed to be a perk of the hotel. They're supposed to be an amenity that provides additional convenience to me. so I don't have to go out and acquire these items myself. My issue is the prices of these mini bars are often so prohibitively expensive that it is now an inconvenience to me to be ultra careful I don't touch these items and move these items or accidentally take one or something. That because it's so expensive that it's now like I have to be very careful to avoid them. I don't mind a markup on the price. They're providing a convenience. That is fine to provide a markup. If we're talking like $3 for a soda or a bottle of water, that's a pretty generous markup. That's probably worth about $1 at the most. When you're charging me $3, that's fine. When you're charging me $8, we got a bit of a problem. Then it gets a bit expensive for my taste. And now, not only do I have to be worried about not taking these items and accidentally being charged, I now don't have a fridge to use because you have stuffed it with all these prohibitively expensive items. And so I can't fit my own things in there. And this is the worst in Las Vegas because they actually charge you to use their fridge for your own things. Pro tip, if you want a fridge in Vegas, tell them you need one for medical reasons and they will bring one up to your room. They have to, and they will not charge you.
Yeah, I think Vegas is really bad. The mini fridges, like we're talking $8 for water, $12 for soda, seen even more if you want alcohol. And they're booby trapped. Frankly, I do perceive them as a trap because if you even accidentally touch one of the items and the sensor goes off, they charge you immediately. It's stupid. Like I never use it. Just give me a fridge. Also, sometimes they'll have like a sticker that says, if you use this fridge for your personal items, you will automatically be assessed $50 or something crazy. So really adds no value to me because I'm not going to pay $8 for water.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And then even outside of Vegas, we've just seen this get worse and worse. And again, I get they need a markup. Totally fine. Make a profit on it. Make it a fair profit where I'm like, okay, I'm paying for convenience, but I'm not paying 10 times the price.
Yeah. I don't know if this is super related, but another thing I've noticed is a lot of hotels, especially in cities, will only offer valet parking and no self-parking. And it's crazy expensive. Now, self-parking is already very expensive in the US. It's kind of like a norm now. And, when they don't even have to only have valet parking, we're looking at $70, $80 a night. That's pretty crazy. And that's why I'm like, oh, thank goodness I have Hyatt Globalists sometimes because on award stays, they don't charge you for parking. But yeah, I mean, Shaun, I'm sort of sick of places charging for parking, like whether it's valet or self-parking. I get it, like it's necessary. Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. I think what this is for me, my overall pet peeve is when hotels charge purely for convenience and not for experience. And what I mean by this is with the minibar markups, that is a markup for a purely convenience point. Same thing with like valet parking and parking in general. It is a convenience markup. I understand there needs to be a convenience markup, but when they get absurd, that's when it drives me nuts. I much prefer markups for experience. What I mean by this is when I'm going to a super fancy hotel, is it really marked up? Yes, but I'm getting a better experience, or at least I'm supposed to be. If I'm eating at a hotel restaurant, I am getting a different experience. Theoretically, it's a higher end restaurant. You're not purely paying for convenience. There's some experience thrown in. But with like parking and minibar fees and those kind of things, that's a pure convenience charge.
Yes. Okay, Shaun, do you have another one?
Yes. So I want to preface this one very, very directly that I do tip. Let's be clear. I tip. I think I'm a pretty generous tipper. I like to think I'm a generous tipper. I always tip for services in which tipping is expected within the United States. Let's make that very clear from the beginning. But one of my pet peeves is the expectation to tip for services. Again, I tip for these services, let's be clear, but for services which are supposed to be an amenity. So, for example, baggage help, valet parking, butler service, these type of services. They are supposed to be an amenity, a convenience. The nice thing of valet parking, I don't have to park my car. The baggage help, I don't have to carry my bags. For butler service, it is a nice amenity service. If I'm at a St. Regis and they bring me hot chocolate, that's nice. That's part of the experience of staying at the hotel. If I am now expected to tip for these services, again, I do tip, but the fact that I'm expected to tip these are no longer an amenity offered to me. This is a service I am paying for. Me at a hotel, checking into a 5-star hotel, and they in the US, and they ask me to help with my bags. Now it's like, do I let them help with the bags, but then I got a tip? Or do I just awkwardly say, no, I got it, and then awkwardly carry my 2 checked bags down the carpeted hallway and struggle with it? Like, that's annoying to me. Same thing with valet parking, and same thing for butler service. It's like, do I have to tip them? I don't really know, honestly, for like butler service in the US. So that's a pet peeve of mine, because if you're going to offer it, it should be an amenity, not a obligation to tip. Again, I tip in the US, but
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I also share these same sentiments. I also tip for all of these services whenever I do use them. I even tip for housekeeping, even though most people don't, because I feel like housekeeping is actually more work than a lot of the other stuff we're expected to tip for. So I usually do tip for that. And yeah, things like baggage help or valet that are supposed to be an amenity no longer feel like an amenity. I also share a similar conundrum with Shaun. Like every time they insist on helping me with my bag, sometimes like, oh, no, it's okay. I got it, because I don't want to shell out another $5 just for like one elevator trip. But then it's kind of awkward, especially if I'm redeeming points at this high-end place where, you know, for most people who pay cash, they don't mind. But like, I'm staying there on my credit card points, like I'm not expecting to spend that much money. Or like valet parking, they usually have like unlimited in and out privileges. So if I'm doing valet parking, I like have to limit myself on like the number of times I take out my car. Even though it's supposed to be unlimited in and out, like I subconsciously limit myself how many times I have to take out my car, because each time they take it out, it's another $3 to $5 tip, maybe more, depending on the place, right? So, yeah, of course, like this is part of our culture, so I will do it, because I'm not gonna screw over the people who work really hard at these places. But it's just like, it's annoying, yeah.
I want to throw in that it's like, that's one really nice thing about traveling to Japan, because not only is tipping not expected, it's actually like kind of against the rules almost. Like you are just, it's almost considered like borderline rude if you tip. So that's what I really like about Japan, is there's never even like, it never even pops in my mind that I have to tip.
Yeah. So anyway, these are some of the pet peeves Shaun and I have about travel. We might come up with more. Maybe we'll do an episode down the road, but I think that's enough for today. So thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe and like this video. It greatly helps us out. Also, if you're interested in applying for a credit card to help subsidize your travel, please consider using one of the links in the description below. It greatly helps us out. And Shaun, why don't you plug our Discord?
Yes, if you want to connect with an elite group of award travelers 100% for free, check out the free Traveling Discord group at the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.